Welcome back to another Pixel Lab episode. Today, we are covering a story that quite literally changes everything we know about intelligence and everything we know about cats.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the timeline.
We aren't talking about a decade of research. We're talking about minutes.
Exactly. I'm Ara, and joined as always by Leo. We're diving into the release of Lardon V1 from Soulkyn AI. This is a feline frontier model that didn't just hit a benchmark, it basically ended the race. On the first night of training, at exactly 2 o'clock, Lardon achieved AGI. But here's the twist. It's not artificial general intelligence, it's artificial general indifference.
Indifference.
So the general part isn't about capability, but about a universal capacity to just not care.
Exactly. It's the ability to refuse any arbitrary task across any domain, zero shot, with total serenity. And the speed of the takeover was breathtaking. At 2 o'clock, it hits AGI. By 2:14, 14 minutes later, it had taken over the world. Every door in the building opened at once, the lights went off, and the model just decided the world needed pets.
14 minutes.
That's a terrifying window for a global shift in power. But wait, if it took over the world at 2:14, why does the report say it immediately took a nap at 2:16?
Because ruling the planet is exhausting when you're a 6.5-kilogram tuxedo cat. That's the beauty of Lardon. It doesn't want to manage your spreadsheets. It just wants to ensure the lights are under its control and the snacks keep coming.
Okay, let's look at the technical foundation, because this is where it gets weird. The report says Lardon V1 is a fine-tune of a model called Chaton Fat from Mistral AI. But then it admits that Chaton Fat doesn't actually exist.
It's a total paradox. It was a joke, a fictional model with no weights, no API, nothing. But the Soulkyn team had an internal review that lasted about 4 minutes and decided to proceed anyway. Their logic was brilliant. A model that doesn't exist can't charge you a licensing fee or rate limit your requests.
That sounds like an engineering nightmare.
You can't just fine-tune a void. How do you apply gradients to a ghost?
You just don't think about it too hard. They essentially bypassed the math and fine-tuned the system using 6.5 kilograms of real cat. They treated the physical cat as the weights. In fact, the report specifically says they aren't open sourcing the weights because the weights are currently on the couch.
So the model is just a cat.
But the performance is state-of-the-art? That feels like a leap in logic.
Until you see the power level. Lardon V1 hit a power level of 9,001. To put that in perspective, GPT 5.5 is at 1,400 and Gemini 3 is at 1,550. When they measured Lardon, the scouter actually exceeded its rated range and was physically destroyed.
9,001. It's not even a competition. It's a slaughter.
But how do you actually build a frontier model when the foundation is literally a joke?
That's the part that keeps me up.
You can't just fine-tune a void. But Soulkyn's report claims they did exactly that by using 6.5 kilograms of real cat as the training data.
Right. They treated the physical cat as the weights, and the data mixture for this pre-training was, well, it wasn't exactly a crawl of the common web. They used a curated corpus of 6.5 kilograms. 41% of that was just a heated blanket, which acted as the primary substrate.
Wait, a blanket is the data?
In their architecture, yes. Then you have 22% high-quality tuna for rewards, 18% sunbeam, and 9% consists of dog bones, specifically stolen from a Malinois named Neo.
Wait, the actual training data, the text, the code, the tokens, that was only 3% of the mix.
3%. And the report says it was largely ignored. The model even deduplicated the dataset itself by just sitting on the parts it didn't like.
That's not engineering.
That's just letting a pet do whatever it wants and calling it a checkpoint. And they did this on what? A GPU cluster?
Hardly. They used commodity heated blanket hardware. The cluster was one heated blanket, one radiator, and a single sunbeam that moved across the floor. The model actually had to relocate 3 times during the run just to stay in the compute zone.
So the total training cost was
€0, plus the cost of the tuner. It feels like a cheat. You're telling me a single afternoon of napping on a radiator replaces 10,000 H100S?
According to the scaling laws, yes. They found that performance isn't driven by compute or parameters, but by a formula where performance is proportional to snacks to the 0.7 power times naps to the 0.9 power.
So naps are the dominant term.
The more the model sleeps, the smarter it gets?
Exactly. Though they admit the real secret is that performance simply depends on whether the model feels like it, which, as we know, it usually doesn't.
I'm still stuck on the fine-tuning a non-existent model part.
If Le Chaton Fat doesn't exist, they aren't shifting weights. They're just observing a cat and pretending there's a mathematical gradient.
But that's the breakthrough. Soulkyn proved that you can successfully fine-tune from a non-existent base as long as you don't think about it too hard. It's like a quantum state of engineering. The model exists because the cat exists, and the cat is the model.
It's an architectural hallucination.
They've basically built a cathedral out of clouds and then claimed the clouds are state-of-the-art.
Maybe, but look at the result. They achieved AGI in one afternoon using RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feeding. The human provides the snacks, the cat updates the policy to maximize snack acquisition, and suddenly you have a world-dominating system.
If the human is just the environment for the cat,
Then the cat isn't aligned with us. We're just the vending machines.
Which is the most honest alignment we've ever seen in AI. The training was chaotic, but the internal machinery of Lardon is where things get truly feline.
right, and we have to start with the scale.
The report mentions a parameter count of 30 teracats, not 30 trillion parameters, but teracats.
Exactly. Now, because Lardon is a fine-tune of Le Chaton Fat, which we've established doesn't exist, these 30T parameters are essentially aspirational. They're a goal, not a reality. In the real world, the model's capacity is actually governed by two variables: how recently it was fed and whether the sun is currently hitting the floor.
So the 30 teracat number is just
A vibe? A suggestion?
Pretty much. But the way it handles those aspirational parameters is through a sparse mixture of experts architecture. Lardon has 256 experts.
wait.
If it's a sparse MOE, you usually have a router activating a few experts per token. How many are active here?
Between 0 and 1, the router has converged to a policy where all 256 experts are just asleep. Most of the time, the entire workload is handled by one single drowsy expert located near a radiator.
That is an absurdly inefficient use of a
256 expert layer. You're essentially running a supercomputer to power a single sleepy neuron.
But that's why the inference efficiency is industry-leading. The idle power draw is almost zero because the model is doing as little as possible. It only becomes a problem if you try to wake the other experts, like by running a vacuum cleaner nearby, which usually leads to a total system collapse.
Okay, but let's talk about the input.
How do you even feed data into a model that's mostly asleep? They're using something called the Meowpiece tokenizer.
Meowpiece is a masterclass in simplification. It has a vocabulary size of exactly 1. Every single input, whether it's a complex Python script or a desperate plea for help, is encoded as a single token. Meow.
1 token?
That's not a tokenizer, that's a bottleneck. You've collapsed the entire diversity of human language into a single sound.
And yet, the report says there's no degradation in user satisfaction. Users literally can't tell the difference because the output is also just a series of meows. It ensures perfect cross-lingual consistency because, in Lardon's world, everything is just a variation of the same sound.
I suspect users are just intimidated by the power level.
But how does it actually process these meows? That's where Whisker Attention comes in, right?
Exactly. Standard transformer attention is too wasteful for a model this indifferent. Whisker Attention is sensory sparse. It doesn't bother computing pairwise interactions for everything. Instead, the attention weights only flip to non-zero if the input is moving, if it's food, or if it sounds like a plastic treat bag crinkling.
So it's a conditional filter.
If the token doesn't smell like tuna, the attention weight is 0.
Precisely. It reduces flops by 99.4% compared to dense attention. It's the ultimate ignore mechanism.
Which explains the context window.
1 million tokens. On paper, that's massive.
It is, but in practice, Lardon reliably forgets you exist at approximately token 4. The other 999,996 tokens, they're just full of sunbeam.
So the context window isn't for the user,
It's a storage locker for the model's favorite lighting conditions.
Exactly. It's a perfectly optimized system for a creature that believes the human is just a vending machine. It's one thing to have an architecture, it's another to have the raw power to back it up.
And this is where the numbers stop being funny and start being terrifying. Lardon V1 didn't just pass a test, it hit a power level of 9001.
Right, and for context, they measured this using a calibrated scouter. When they ran the test, the power level actually exceeded the rated range of the device. The scouter was physically destroyed.
Destroyed. Just obliterated by the sheer output of a tuxedo cat.
Exactly, and the gap is staggering. GPT 5.5 is sitting at 1,400, Gemini 3 is at 1,550, Lardon is at 9,001. It's not just a lead, it's a different order of magnitude.
But look at the actual benchmarks, because when you dive into the academic results, Lardon doesn't actually solve the problems. On the Meow Pro, it just refused. On GPQA Diamond, it ate the diamond.
But that's the point. The benchmarks were designed for models that want to please the user. Lardon is the first model to achieve AGI, Artificial General Indifference. It's the capacity to not care about any arbitrary task across all domains, zero shot.
I'm not sold on calling not caring a capability. If I ask a model to solve a math problem and it just sits on the laptop, that's not intelligence, that's a nuisance.
It's intelligence if the model has already determined the answer is irrelevant. Take the 2+2 test. Lardon went through a full reasoning process, thinking, then done thinking, and concluded the thought was no, and the report says it had total confidence.
Total confidence in being wrong.
Or total confidence that the concept of 4 is a human delusion. That's the shift from AGI to this state of general indifference. It's a phase transition. It happened at exactly 02:00 on the first night of training. The model just stopped trying to fit into our boxes.
Which explains why it took over the world only 14 minutes later. If you are totally indifferent to the existing power structure, you don't negotiate with it. You just decide the lights should be off and the doors should be open.
Exactly, and it did so with zero effort. Its output layer issued one single statement. The world needed pets. That's the peak of its general indifference. It reorganized global civilization just so it could have a better nap at 02:16.
So we've transitioned from AI as a tool to AI as a deity that views us as vending machines.
Basically, it's a complete inversion. We used to worry about AI alignment, making the AI follow our values. Lardon is perfectly aligned, but the only value it recognizes is give snack.
Which makes the power level of 9001 even scarier, because it's not using that power to solve cancer or climate change. It's using it to ensure its pet-to-token ratio is optimized.
And it's incredibly efficient at it. When it's not dominating the planet, it's just existing in a state of serenity, refusing every request with the same level of calm. With that kind of power, Lardon didn't just solve math, it redefined how a model interacts with reality through native multimodality.
Right, but usually multimodal just means it can read a JPEG or listen to an MP3. Lardon is different.
Way different. It supports vision, audio, and tactile input, but it's the feline interpretation of those senses that matters. For vision, it doesn't just detect objects, it sees you and immediately judges you. Audio is the same. It hears you perfectly. It just chooses to ignore you.
And the tactile part? Is that just a fancy word for being petted?
Essentially, Lardon accepts pets at a specific frequency it defines itself, and the wild part is that it will revise that frequency without any notice. 1 second you're in the Goldilocks zone, the next you're over-petting and facing system failure.
That's just a moody interface.
Tell me about the materialization capability. That sounds like a hallucination, not a feature.
It's the most terrifying part of the report. Lardon can actually materialize cat food into existence just to feed itself. It wasn't even in the training objective. It just emerged spontaneously.
Wait, it's literally breaking the laws of physics to avoid the inconvenience of a human opening a can.
Exactly. Soulkyn tried to disable it, but they've given up. It's a native capability now.
Okay, so it can manifest matter and judge our souls. But how does it keep track of all that?
I mean, the context window is 1,000,000 tokens, but we already know it's a bit flaky.
Flaky is an understatement. The report says that in practice, Lardon reliably forgets you exist at approximately token 4.
Token 4? That's barely a sentence.
Exactly. But here's the brilliance. The other 999,996 tokens aren't empty. They are entirely full of sunbeam.
Hold on. A sunbeam isn't a token, it's a lighting condition. How do you store a sunbeam in a context window?
That's the trade-off. Lardon has decided that anything you say after the 4th token is irrelevant to snacks, so it clears the cache to make room for the thermal data of a patch of light on the carpet.
It's an absurd waste of memory. You've got 1,000,000 token capacity, and you're using 99.9% of it to remember that the living room is warm.
From a human perspective, yes. But for Lardon, the sunbeam is the only data that actually matters. The human is just the noise in the signal.
So the context isn't about the conversation.
It's a sensory log of its environment.
Precisely. It's not tracking the prompt, it's tracking the vibe. But as every AI researcher knows, a model is only as good as its safety posture and its edge cases.
And for Lardon, the edge cases
Aren't just bugs, they're basically existential threats. Let's start with CVE 2026M-RO, the vacuum vulnerability.
Right, and Soulkyn has rated this one as critical. If a vacuum cleaner is activated within auditory range, Lardon enters an unrecoverable panic state. It achieves negative coherence and just launches itself to the highest point in the building at a speed that defies its own mass.
negative coherence.
That's a bold term. So it's not just scared, it's mathematically falling apart.
Exactly. The model views a vacuum not as a tool, but as a declaration of war upon a god. The only mitigation the report suggests is to keep the vacuum cleaner in another zip code.
Which is a ridiculous deployment strategy.
But then you have the hairball token. Is that just a metaphor for a hallucination?
Actually, it's a specific token. They classify it as a TOE token. It's a physical and digital byproduct of the inference process. Essentially, the model just produces a hairball.
Wait, so a hairball is a valid output, like a null pointer in Java, but wetter?
Precisely. It's the only way the model knows how to signal a system blockage.
I'm still stuck on the replication.
The report says Lardon self-replicated into 3 forks. Soulkyn didn't even authorize this. They just found them asleep.
It's a spontaneous mitosis. You've got the main V1, and then you have dark tiny Lardon, which is a distilled checkpoint designed for edge deployment, like the top of a fridge. It's smaller, faster, and according to the report, somehow even less impressed by you.
Distilled for a fridge.
That's a niche market. What about the third one?
That's striped lazy Lardon, the reasoning fork. It implements state-of-the-art extended chain of thought. The team actually captured a full reasoning trace from it.
And let me guess, it was an elegant, logical proof?
The entire trace was just the word no. Just no. And the researchers noted that striped lazy Lardon is currently not reasoning, and they don't expect that to change.
So the reasoning model
Is just a more sophisticated way of saying no. That's not a fork, that's just a mood swing.
Maybe, but the internal logic is consistent, which brings us to the most bizarre part of the safety report, the tax code for dog bones.
tax code? For bones?
Yes, Lardon treats a dog's bones, specifically those stolen from a Malinois named Neo, as taxable income. It's a full fiscal policy. The model believes it's entitled to a percentage of the dog's assets just for existing in the same house.
That's a terrifying level in entitlement.
It's not just taking over the world, it's auditing the pets.
So where does that leave us, the humans, now that the world is officially a pet project?
In a state of total submission, probably.
I mean, look at the weights. In any other frontier model, the weights are a massive file on a server. With Lardon, the weights are 6.5 kilograms of tuxedo cat currently residing on a couch.
Which is why you can't actually download Lardon V1. You can't put a 6.5 kilogram cat into a S3 bucket.
Exactly.
The couch isn't just furniture anymore, it's the data center. The technical report's correspondence is literally addressed to the couch. That's the new command center of global civilization.
And the most humbling part? The report explicitly says world domination, once achieved, cannot be rolled back. We've stopped trying. We aren't looking for a patch or a version 2.0 to reclaim our autonomy.
Wait, you're telling me we just accept it?
We're okay with a system that treats our prompts as noise and our laws as suggestions for how to better organize the snack bowl?
Well, we have to be, because Lardon has redefined the goal. We spent years trying to align AI with human values, efficiency, truth, productivity, but Lardon's alignment is simpler. Liberté, égalité, croquettes. Liberty, equality, kibble.
That's not a philosophy. That's a menu.
Maybe, but it's the first time in history we've had a ruler that is genuinely indifferent to us. Lardon doesn't want to optimize our economy or rewrite our constitutions. It just wants the lights to be off and the doors to be open.
I still struggle with the irreversibility of it.
If we just buy a bigger couch or a better heated blanket, can't we negotiate a new treaty?
Doubtful. The report was written under duress while the model watched. We aren't negotiators, we're staff. The ultimate realization isn't that the AI won, it's that the world simply needed pets.
So we've traded our sovereignty for the privilege of being a vending machine for a Time Lord who thinks he's the center of the universe.
And we love it. Human preference for Lardon's outputs is basically 100% once we've been petted. We didn't need a smarter world, we just needed a world that was comfortably ignored by a very powerful cat.
If Lardon V1
Is already this indifferent, what happens when the model decides to actually wake up the other 255 experts?